Audie Leon Murphy was one of the most decorated American combat soldiers of World War II, receiving every military combat award for valor available from the U.S. Army, as well as French and Belgian awards for heroism. The 19-year-old Murphy received the Medal of Honor after single-handedly holding off an entire company of Germans for an hour at the Colmar Pockets in France in January 1945, then leading a successful counterattack while wounded and out of ammunition. Murphy was born into a large sharecropper family in Hunt County, Texas. His father abandoned them, and his mother died when he was a teenager. Murphy left school in 5th grade to pick cotton and find other work to help support his family. His skill with a hunting rifle was a necessity for putting food on the table. Murphy's older sister helped him to falsify documentation about his birth date to meet the minimum age requirement for enlisting in the military, and after being turned down by the Navy and the Marine Corps he enlisted in the Army. He first saw action in the Allied invasion of Sicily and Anzio, and in 1944 was part of the liberation of Rome and invasion of southern France. Murphy fought at Montélimar, and led his men on a successful assault at the Lamette quarry near Cleurie in northeastern France in October of that year. After the war Murphy enjoyed a 21-year acting career. He played himself in the 1955 autobiographical To Hell and Back based on his 1949 memoirs of the same name, but most of his films were westerns. He made guest appearances on celebrity television shows and starred in the series Whispering Smith. Murphy was a fairly accomplished songwriter, and bred quarter horses in California and Arizona, becoming a regular participant in horse racing. Suffering what would today be termed post-traumatic stress disorder, he slept with a loaded handgun under his pillow and looked for solace in addictive sleeping pills. In the last few years of his life he was plagued by money problems, but refused offers to appear in alcohol and cigarette commercials because he did not want to set a bad example. Murphy died in a plane crash in Virginia in 1971 shortly before his 46th birthday, and was interred with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. Early life: Audie Leon Murphy was born the seventh of 12 children to Emmett Berry Murphy and his wife Josie Bell Killian on June 20, 1925, in Kingston, Hunt County, Texas. The Murphys were sharecroppers of Irish descent. As a child, Murphy was a loner with mood swings and an explosive temper. He grew up in Texas, around Farmersville, Greenville, and Celeste, where he attended elementary school. His father drifted in and out of the family's life and eventually deserted them. Murphy dropped out of school in 5th grade and got a job picking cotton for $1 a day to help support his family. He also became skilled with the rifle, hunting small game to help feed them. After his mother died of endocarditis and pneumonia in 1941, he worked at a radio repair shop and at a combination general store, garage and gas station in Greenville. Hunt County authorities placed his 3 youngest siblings in Bowles Children's Home, a Christian orphanage in Quinlan. After the war, he bought a house in Farmersville for his oldest sister Corinne and her husband Poland Burns. His other siblings briefly shared the home. The loss of his mother stayed with Murphy throughout his life. She died when I was 16. She had the most beautiful hair I've ever seen. It reached almost to the floor. She rarely talked. And always seemed to be searching for something. What it was I don't know. We didn't discuss our feelings. But when she passed away, she took something of me with her. It seems I've been searching for it ever since. World War II service. Murphy had always wanted to be a soldier, and after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941, he tried to enlist, but the Army, Navy and Marine Corps all turned him down for being underweight and underage. After his sister provided an affidavit falsifying his birth date by a year, he was accepted by the U.S. Army on June 30, 1942. After basic training at Camp Walters, he was sent to Fort Meade for advanced infantry training. During basic training he earned the Marksman Badge with Rifle Component Bar and Expert Badge with Bayonet Component Bar. Mediterranean Theater. Murphy was shipped to Casablanca in French Morocco on February 20, 1943. He was assigned to Company B, 1st Battalion, 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division, which trained under the command of Major General Lucien Truscott. He participated as a platoon messenger with his division at Arzew in Algeria in rigorous training for the Allied assault landings in Sicily, and was promoted to private first class on May 7 and corporal on July 15. When the 3rd Infantry landed at Licata, Sicily, on July 10, Murphy was a division runner. On a scouting patrol, he killed 2 fleeing Italian officers near Cannacata. Sidelined with illness for a week when Company B arrived in Palermo on July 20, he rejoined them when they were assigned to a hillside location protecting a machine gun emplacement, while the rest of the 3rd Infantry Division fought at San Fratello en route to the Allied capture of the transit port of Messina. Murphy participated in the September 1943 mainland Salerno landing at Battipaglia. While on a scouting party along the Volturno River, he and 2 other soldiers were ambushed by German machine gun fire, which killed one of the Americans. Murphy and the other survivor of his group responded by killing 5 German soldiers with hand grenades and machine gun fire. While taking part in the October Allied assault on the Volturno line, near Mignano Monte Lungo Hill 193, he and his company repelled an attack by 7 German soldiers, killing 3 and taking 4 prisoner. Murphy was promoted to sergeant on December 13. In January 1944 Murphy was promoted to staff sergeant. He was hospitalized in Naples with malaria on January 21, and was unable to participate in the initial landing at the Anzio beachhead. He returned on January 29 and participated in the First Battle of Cisterna, and was made platoon sergeant of Company B platoon following the battle. He returned with the 3rd Division to Anzio, where they remained for months. Taking shelter from the weather in an abandoned farmhouse on March 2, Murphy and his platoon killed the crew of a passing German tank. He then crawled out alone close enough to destroy the tank with rifle grenades, for which he received the Bronze Star with V device. Murphy continued to make scouting patrols to take German prisoners before being hospitalized for a week on March 13 with a second bout of malaria. 61 infantry officers and enlisted men of Company B, 15th Infantry, including Murphy, were awarded the Combat Infantryman Badge on May 8. Murphy was also awarded a Bronze Oak Leaf Cluster for his Bronze Star. American forces liberated Rome on June 4, and Murphy remained bivouacked in Rome with his platoon throughout July. European theater, Murphy received the Distinguished Service Cross for action taken on August 15, 1944, during the first wave of the Allied invasion of southern France. After landing on Yellow Beach near Ramatuelle, Murphy's platoon was attacked by German soldiers while making their way through a vineyard. He retrieved a machine gun that had been detached from the squad and returned fire at the German soldiers, killing 2 and wounding 1. 2 Germans exited a house about 100 yards away and appeared to surrender. Murphy's best friend responded to them, and they shot and killed him. Murphy advanced alone on the house under direct fire. He wounded 2, killed 6, and took 11 prisoner. Murphy was with the 1st Battalion, 15th Infantry Regiment during the 27 August 28 offensive at Montélimar that secured the area from the Germans. Along with the other soldiers who took part in the action, he received the Presidential Unit Citation. Murphy's first Purple Heart was for a heel wound received in a mortar shell blast on September 15, 1944 in northeastern France. His first Silver Star came after he killed 4 and wounded 3 at a German machine gun position on October 2 at Lamette Quarry in the Cleurie River Valley. 3 days later, Murphy crawled alone towards the Germans at Lamette, carrying in 436 Seychelles rupees radio and directing his men for an hour while the Germans fired directly at him. When his men finally took the hill, 15 Germans had been killed and 35 wounded. Murphy's actions earned him a Bronze Oak Leaf Cluster for his Silver Star. He was awarded a Battlefield Commission to Second Lieutenant on October 14, which elevated him to platoon leader. While en route to Brovaz on October 26, the 3rd Platoon of Company B was attacked by a German sniper group. Murphy captured 2 before being shot in the hip by a sniper. He returned fire and shot the sniper between the eyes. At the 3rd General Hospital at Aix-en-Provence, The removal of gangrene from the wound caused partial loss of his hip muscle and kept him out of combat until January. Murphy received his first bronze oak leaf cluster for his Purple Heart for this injury. The Colmar Pocket, 850 square miles in the Vosges Mountains, had been held by German troops since November 1944. On January 14, 1945, Murphy rejoined his platoon, which had been moved to the Colmar area in December. He moved with the 3rd Division on January 24 to the town of Holzwin, where they met with a strong German counterattack. He was wounded in both legs, for which he received a second bronze oak leaf cluster for his Purple Heart. As the company awaited reinforcements on January 26, he was made commander of Company B. The Germans scored a direct hit on an M10 tank destroyer, setting it alight, forcing the crew to abandon it. Murphy ordered his men to retreat to positions in the woods, remaining alone at his post shooting his M1 carbine and directing artillery fire via his field telephone while the Germans aimed fire directly at his position. Murphy mounted the abandoned, burning tank destroyer and began firing its .50 caliber machine gun at the advancing Germans, killing a squad crawling through a ditch towards him. For an hour, Murphy stood on the tank destroyer returning German fire from foot soldiers and advancing tanks, killing or wounding 50 Germans. He sustained a leg wound during his stand, and stopped only after he ran out of ammunition. Murphy rejoined his men, disregarding his own wound, and led them back to repel the Germans. He insisted on remaining with his men while his wounds were treated. For his actions that day he was awarded the Medal of Honor. The 3rd Infantry Division was awarded the Presidential Unit Citation for its actions at the Colmar Pocket, giving Murphy a bronze oak leaf cluster for the emblem. On February 16, Murphy was promoted to first lieutenant and was awarded the Legion of Merit for his service January 22, 1944 February 18, 1945. He was moved from the front lines to regimental headquarters and made a liaison officer. Decorations. The United States additionally honored Murphy's war contributions with the American Campaign Medal, the European Euro-Africana Euro-Middle Eastern Campaign Medal with arrowhead device and campaign stars, the World War II Victory Medal, and the Army of Occupation Medal with Germany clasp. France recognized his service with the French Legion of Honor, a Euro grade of Chevalier, the French Croix de Guerre with Silver Star, the French Croix de Guerre with Palm, the French Liberation Medal and the French Fourragerian Colors of the Croix de Guerre, which was authorized for all members of the 3rd Infantry Division who fought in France during World War II. Belgium awarded Murphy the Belgian Croix de Guerre with 1940 Palm. Brigadier General Ralph B. Lovett and Lieutenant Colonel Hallett D. Edson recommended Murphy for the Medal of Honor. Near Salzburg, Austria on June 2, 1945. Lieutenant General A. M. Patch presented Murphy with the Medal of Honor and Legion of Merit for his actions at Holzwin. When asked after the war why he had seized the machine gun and taken on an entire company of German infantry, he replied simply, "They were killing my friends." Murphy received every U.S. military combat award for valor available from the U.S. Army for his World War II service. Post-war military service. Inquiries were made through official channels about the prospect of Murphy attending West Point upon his return to the United States, but he never enrolled. Author Don Graham wrote that Murphy suggested the idea and then dropped it, possibly when he realized the extent of academic preparation needed to pass the entrance exam. Murphy was one of several military personnel who received orders on June 8, 1945 to report to Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas, for temporary duty and reassignment. Upon arrival on June 13, he was one of 4 assigned to Fort Sam Houston Army Ground and Services Redistribution Station and sent home for 30 days of recuperation, with permission to travel anywhere within the United States during that period. While on leave, Murphy was feted with parades, banquets, and speeches. He received a belated Good Conduct Medal on August 21. He was discharged with a rank of first lieutenant at a 50% disability classification on September 21 and transferred to the Officers Reserve Corps. Post-traumatic stress. Murphy had been plagued since his military service with insomnia and bouts of depression, and slept with a loaded pistol under his pillow. A post-service medical examination on June 17, 1947 revealed symptoms of headaches, vomiting, and nightmares about war. His medical records indicated that he took sleeping pills to help prevent nightmares. During the mid-1960s, he recognized his dependence on Placidil, and locked himself alone in a hotel room for a week to successfully break the addiction. Post-traumatic stress levels exacerbated his innate moodiness, and surfaced in episodes that friends and professional colleagues found alarming. His first wife, Wanda Hendricks, stated that he once held her at gunpoint. She witnessed her husband guilt-ridden and tearful over newsreel footage of German war orphans. Murphy briefly found a creative stress outlet in writing poetry after his army discharge. His poem The Crosses Grow on Anzio appeared in his book To Hell and Back, but was attributed to the fictitious character Kerrigan. In an effort to draw attention to the problems of returning Korean War and Vietnam War veterans, Murphy spoke out candidly about his own problems with post-traumatic stress disorder. It was known during Murphy's lifetime as battle fatigue, and shell shock, terminology that dated back to World War I. He called on the government to give increased consideration and study to the emotional impact of combat experiences, and to extend health care benefits to war veterans. As a result of legislation introduced by U.S. Congressman Olentiag 5 months after Murphy's death in 1971, the Audie L. Murphy Memorial VA Hospital in San Antonio, now a part of the South Texas Veterans Healthcare System, was dedicated in 1973. Texas National Guard. After the 25 June 1950 commencement of the Korean War, Murphy enlisted in the 36th Infantry Division of the Texas National Guard with the rank of captain. During his service he drilled new recruits in the summer training camps, and granted the Guard permission to use his name and image in recruiting materials. Although he wanted to join the fighting and juggle training activities with his film career, the 36th Infantry Division was never sent to Korea. At his request he transferred to inactive status on October 1, 1951, due to his film commitments with MGM Studios, and returned to active status in 1955. Murphy was promoted to the rank of Major by the Texas National Guard in 1956 and returned to inactive status in 1957. In 1969, his official separation from the Guard transferred him to the United States Army Reserve. He remained with the USAR until his transfer to the Retired Reserve in 1969. Film career. Throughout an acting career spanning from 1948 to 1969, Murphy made more than 40 feature films and one television series. When actor and producer James Cagney saw the 16th July 1945 issue of Life magazine depicting Murphy as the most decorated soldier, he brought him to Hollywood. Cagney and his brother William signed him as a contract player for their production company and gave him training in acting, voice and dance. They never cast Murphy in a movie and a personal disagreement ended the association in 1947. Murphy later worked with acting coach Estelle Harmon, and honed his diction by reciting dialogue from William Shakespeare and William Saroyan. Murphy moved into Terry Hunt's athletic club in Hollywood where he lived until 1948. Hollywood writer David Speck McClure befriended Murphy, collaborating with him on Murphy's 1949 book To Hell and Back. McClure used his connections to get Murphy a $500 bit part in Texas, Brooklyn and Heaven. The agent of Wanda Hendricks, whom he had been dating since 1946, got him a bit part in the 1948 Alan Ladd film Beyond Glory directed by John Farrow. His 1949 film Bad Boy gave him his first leading role. The film's financial backers refused to bankroll the project unless Murphy was given the lead. Thus, Allied artists put aside their reservations about using an inexperienced actor and gave him the starring role. Universal Studios signed Murphy to a 7-year studio contract at $2,500 a week. His first film for them was as Billy the Kid in The Kid from Texas in 1950. He wrapped up that year making Sierra starring Wanda Hendricks, who by that time had become his wife, and Kansas Raiders as outlaw Jesse James. Universal lent him to MGM in 1951 at a salary of $25,000 to play the lead of The Youth in The Red Badge of Courage, directed by John Huston. Murphy and Huston worked together again in the 1960 film The Unforgiven. The only film Murphy made in 1952 was Duel at Silver Creek with director Don Siegel. Murphy worked with Siegel one more time in 1958 for The Gun Runners. In 1953, he starred in Frederick de Cordova's Column South, and played Jim Harvey in Nathan Uran's Tumbleweed, an adaptation of the Kenneth Perkins novel Three Were Renegades. Director Nathan Uran also directed Gunsmoke and Drums Across the River. George Marshall directed Murphy in the 1954 Destry, a remake of Destry Rides Again, based on a character created by author Max Brand. Although Murphy was initially reluctant to appear as himself in To Hell and Back, the 1955 adaptation of his book directed by Jesse Hipps, he eventually agreed. It became the biggest hit in the history of Universal Studios at the time. To help publicize the release of the film, he made guest appearances on television shows such as What's My Line?, Toast of the Town, and Colgate Comedy Hour. The Hipps-Murphy team proved so successful in To Hell and Back that the two worked together on 5 subsequent films. The partnership resulted in the 1956 Western Walk the Proud Land, and the non-Westerns Joe Butterfly and World in My Corner. They worked together for the last time in the 1958 Western Ride a Crooked Trail. Joseph L. Mankiewicz hired Murphy to play the titular role in the 1958 film The Quiet American. Murphy formed a partnership with Harry Joe Brown to make 3 films, starting with The Guns of Fort Petticoat. The partnership fell into disagreement over the remaining 2 projects, and Brown filed suit against Murphy. Murphy featured in 3 westerns in 1959. He starred opposite Sandra Dee in The Wild and the Innocent, collaborated as an uncredited co-producer with Walter Mirisch on the black-and-white cast A Long Shadow, and performed as a hired killer in No Name on the Bullet, a film that was well received by critics. Thelma Ritter was his co-star in the 1960 Startime television episode The Man. During the early 1960s, Murphy donated his time and otherwise lent his name and image for 3 episodes of the Big Picture television series produced by the United States Army. He received the 1960 Outstanding Civilian Service Medal for his cooperation in the episode Broken Bridge, which featured his visits to military installations in Germany, Italy, Turkey and the U.S. state of New Mexico to showcase the military's latest weaponry. Writer Claire Huffaker wrote the 1961 screenplays for Murphy's films 7 Ways from Sundown and Posse from Hell. Willard W. Willingham and his wife Mary Willingham befriended Murphy in his early days in Hollywood and worked with him on a number of projects. Willard was a producer on Murphy's 1961 television series Whispering Smith and co-wrote the screenplay for Battle at Bloody Beach that year. He collaborated on Bullet for a Bartman in 1964 and Arizona Raiders in 1965. The Willinghams as a team wrote the screenplay for Gunpoint as well the script for Murphy's last starring lead in the western 40 Guns to Apache Pass in 1967. Murphy made Trunk to Cairo in Israel in 1966. His first met director Bud Boakticher when Murphy requested to be his boxing partner at Terry Hunt's athletic club. He subsequently appeared in the 1951 title role of Boakticher's first western The Samaritan Kid. Boakticher wrote the script in 1969 for Murphy's last film A Time for Dying. 2 other projects that Murphy and Boakticher planned to collaborate on A Horse for Mr. Barnum and When There's Something to Do never came to fruition. Personal life. Murphy married actress Wanda Hendricks on January 8, 1949, and their divorce became final on April 19, 1951. 4 days later he married former airline stewardess Pamela Archer. Son Terry Michael Murphy was born in 1952. Son James Shannon Skipper Murphy was born in 1954. Murphy bred quarter horses at the Audie Murphy Ranch in Perez, California, and the Murphy Ranch in Pima County, Arizona. His horses raced at the Del Mar racetrack and he invested large sums of money in the hobby. Murphy had a gambling habit that left his finances in a poor state. In 1968, he stated that he lost $260,000 in an Algerian oil deal and was dealing with the Internal Revenue Service over unpaid taxes. In spite of his financial difficulties, Murphy refused to appear in commercials for alcohol and cigarettes, mindful of the influence he would have on the youth market. Death and commemorations. On May 28, 1971, Murphy was killed when the private plane in which he was a passenger crashed into Brush Mountain, near Catawba, Virginia, 20 miles west of Roanoke in conditions of rain, clouds, fog and zero visibility. The pilot and 4 other passengers were also killed. The aircraft was a twin-engine Aero Commander 680 flown by a pilot who had a private pilot license and a reported 8,000 hours of flying time, but who held no instrument rating. The aircraft was recovered on May 31. After her husband died, Pamela Murphy moved into a small apartment and got a clerk position at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Los Angeles, where she remained employed for 35 years. In 1975, a court awarded Murphy's widow and 2 children $2.5 million in damages due to the accident. On June 7, 1971, Murphy was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. In attendance were George H. W. Bush, William Westmoreland and many of the 3rd Infantry Division. Murphy's grave site is in Section 46, headstone number 46-366-11, located across Memorial Drive from the amphitheater. A special flagstone walkway was later constructed to accommodate the large number of people who visit to pay their respects. It is the cemetery's 2nd most visited grave site, after that of President John F. Kennedy. The headstones of Medal of Honor recipients buried at Arlington National Cemetery are normally decorated in gold leaf. Murphy previously requested that his stone remain plain and inconspicuous, like that of an ordinary soldier. In 1974, a large granite marker was erected just off the Appalachian Trail at 37.364554 a degree N 80.225748 a degree W/37.364554. Minus 80.225748 at 3,100 euro squared elevation, near the crash site. Civilian honors were bestowed on Murphy during his lifetime and posthumously, including a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In 2013, Murphy was honored by his home state with the Texas Legislative Medal of Honor. Songwriting. David Speck McClure, his collaborator on the book To Hell and Back, discovered Murphy's talent for poetry during their work on the memoir when he found discarded verses in Murphy's Hollywood apartment. One of those poems, The Crosses Grow on Anzio, appears in To Hell and Back attributed to a soldier named Kerrigan. Only 2 others survived, Alone and Far Removed and Freedom Flies in Your Heart Like an Eagle. The latter was part of the speech Murphy had written at a 1968 dedication of the Alabama War Memorial in Montgomery, and later set to music by Scott Turner under the title Dusty Old Helmet. Murphy was a fan of country music, in particular Bob Wills and Chet Atkins, but was not a singer or musician himself. Through his friend Guy Mitchell, a recording artist, he was introduced to songwriter Scott Turner sometime in the 1940s. The 3 of them collaborated on numerous songs between 1962 and 1970, the most successful being Shutters and Boards, and When the Wind Blows in Chicago. See also: Notes, footnotes, citations, references, external links, media related to Audie Murphy at Wikimedia Commons.